Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah. Before I even get started, I always forget to say this in my videos, but make sure that you're subscribed and like the video. It really helps me out as I'm growing my channel. So today we're doing a tattoo Q&A. I asked on my Instagram and in the comments of my tattoo tour video, which I will link up here, for any questions you guys have about my tattoos. So I collected them all up and today we're gonna answer some of the most frequently asked questions. And let's just jump right into it. The first question is, what drives you to get a tattoo? So this has definitely changed over time. I think in the beginning, as many people do, I imagine, I thought that my tattoos all had to be super meaningful and like special and significant. And as I've gotten older, that's definitely still true. Like I do have significant, meaningful tattoos that have like a reason behind them. But I also have plenty of tattoos that are either just gap fillers or something beautiful or something cool. Not everything has like a deep symbolic meaning. I think symbolism is something that people often really like want in their tattoos, especially when they first start. Over the years, as I've gotten more and more tattooed, that has just become like so much less important to me, whether they're symbolic or representative of something. Like I said, I do have a couple tattoos that are symbolic or special in some way that I've gotten recently. Like I got my tattoo of my leopard, which is for my dad. I'm planning to get a tattoo for my mom. So, you know, I have stuff that I've gotten recently that is meaningful, but a lot of my tattoos, especially recently, are just like cool artwork that I trust my artists to do. I really stick to the same couple of artists nowadays and I really love their work. So I just kind of trust them to do whatever. The best advice I've ever heard for getting tattooed is find an artist who can do no wrong by you, which means every tattoo that they make you love and you completely trust them to make whatever it is that you want. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. So it's not so important to me that my tattoos have a lot of symbolism and that's what's driving me to get them, but more so just that it's a beautiful design that I feel drawn to. I also think the more tattoos you get, the less you care about each one individually. Like, I don't know if that's bad to say, but like part of it is like the individual tattoos I love having, but also part of it is the aesthetic of being tattooed and like how they all look as a composed thing together. So I think that that's also part of it too, is like, you know, there's the small picture of the individual tattoo, but there's the bigger picture of like how my whole body looks as a tattooed body. And that's something else that I'm really drawn to. The next question is, how would you compare the pain level when getting tattooed on your arm versus your back versus anywhere else? So I've kind of avoided talking about pain levels. I didn't include pain levels in my tattoo tour video because it's so subjective. Like it's really hard for me to say like, oh, this tattoo hurt like so bad for me. So, you know, definitely be careful getting tattooed in this spot. Like some people have really bad pain in some places and other people just totally don't. I do think that there are some like standard things that are true of getting tattooed. Like in general, anywhere that's more of like a fleshy part of your body or like a fattier part of your body is not going to be as painful as something like a bony part of your body. Like for example, my collarbone tattoo is the worst part of this tattoo is like the very front of it that's on my collarbone. Or like my other top level pain tattoo was my elbow ditch tattoo of my rose because it's in a super sensitive area. But other than that, like it's really hard for me to kind of pick and choose like what's gonna be painful and what isn't. I do have a tattoo on my back that kind of goes over my spine and that was also painful because it was a super sensitive area. I have a tattoo on my ribs that was painful because it was on top of my bone on my ribs. So in general, I think many tattooed people will tell you that like that's kind of the standard pain level situation. I've also heard people say that like the pain is worse at the core of your body and it gets less as you go out. So like a tattoo on your stomach or on your ribs is gonna be worse than a tattoo on your arm, with the exception of fingers and toes, like hands and feet. I don't have my hands or feet tattooed, so I can't speak to that personally. But I have heard a lot of people say that like getting tattooed on your fingers and whatnot is like super, super sharp pain. So I do want to get my hands tattooed eventually. I would say that like pain is not really something that drives my decision whether to get a tattoo or not. If I want a tattoo, I'm gonna deal with the pain no matter where it is. I think I've gotten used to it enough now that I'm used to the sensation. It doesn't surprise me anymore. And usually I can sit, you know, a good long while for a tattoo. Definitely with some breaks here and there if it's a long session, but I think that I've become pretty good at handling that sort of thing. Our next question is, how do you know what to commit to forever? And for me, the way I would answer this is very similar to the way I would answer the first question about what drives you to get a tattoo. So like, what do you commit to forever? It used to be things that were very symbolic and meaningful, and now it's just kind of things that I like and things that I think are cool. Next question is, how do you choose between black and colored ink? So if you saw my tattoo tour video, you'll know that most of my tattoos are black ink only. I do have a few like hints of color in my tattoos. I don't have any full color tattoos except for my butterfly. I think that's the only one. I'm like thinking around my body, like, do I have any other colorful tattoos? I think just the butterfly is the only one that's in full color. And then everything else is either all black or has just like tiny hints of color. So for me, I just feel like having all black or majority black ink, it just kind of flows better together. Like I don't have to worry about colors clashing or colors fading or how colors blend together. I've seen some really badly done colorful tattoos or like colored tattoos, depending on who's doing them, don't always age really well. So for me, I just think like black is classic, black is eternal. They always say like bold holds, and I think that's why I go for black. I'm not against color tattoos. I just think that like if you're getting a color tattoo, you need a strong outline to kind of contain the tattoo and the elements of the tattoo, because, oh, actually I remember my other color tattoo, and it's a perfect example of why you need an outline. It's my first tattoo ever, which was my little watercolor violet. It was just purple and white ink, and it had no boundary line or any black outline, and it has completely faded, and it's like, it barely even shows up. Like I completely forget that I have this tattoo at all because it's basically gone. Like it's so blended out into my skin, you can't even see it. So I do think that's true. Bold holds, black is classic. So personally, that's why I go for black tattoos. Another thing I will say is that if you have, you know, various different skin tones and you're getting tattooed, something that your tattoo artist should be probably providing you, I think for free, and many artists are willing to do this, is a color test. Which in itself, personally, I think is a really cool looking tattoo. Usually it's done as like just a line of dots of different colors so that you can have that tattoo heal and then see how those different colors look on your skin. There are artists and there are methods to tattoo darker skin with colored ink. And if an artist thinks that they can't do that, or if an artist is ever telling you that, you know, black people or people of color can't have colored tattoos, that's absolutely not true, and you need to find a new artist who knows what they're doing. So I will say that, like, just because colorful tattoos are not for me, I just want to make it very clear that there are a lot of like ethical considerations and racial considerations around colored tattoos, and I think honestly, any artist that doesn't know how to do colored tattoos on darker skin needs to learn that skill and be able to offer that to any client that walks in. So the next question, I actually want to address something in the way it was asked, and then I'll answer it, but I'll just tell you what the question is. So the question was, if you woke up one day with clean skin, would you get all of your tattoos again, both the placement and the designs? And I understand what they're asking. I don't think they meant this in a bad way, but I just really don't like the idea that like my skin is dirty or like my skin is not clean because it's tattooed. I know that they did not mean it that way at all, but like I just think that, I don't know, like we could, you know, be a little careful with our language and like how we think of people that are tattooed. I think a lot of tattooed people tattoos have a reputation of being like dirty or alternative or untrustworthy, or like, you know, being associated with prison or people that are up to no good or something like that. And like, you know, the idea of waking up with clean skin, aka no tattoos, like I just think that maybe there's a different way to say that doesn't imply that tattoos are dirty. So again, I know that that person didn't mean anything by that. I just thought that was an interesting kind of way of thinking to bring up. But anyway, all of that stuff aside, I understand what they mean, which is like, if you woke up with no tattoos, do you think you would get them all again exactly as they are now? No, definitely not. There's some tattoos that I have, and I talked about this a little bit in my tattoo tour video, where I like them. I think that they're well done, like the artist did it well. It's just like the placement is not the best, or it's not something that I would necessarily do over or necessarily do in the same way. So I think a really good example of that is my tattoo of Marina Abramovich. I talked about this again in my previous video, but I have this very big, dark black portrait tattoo. And I think if I had the chance to go back, I definitely wouldn't get that tattoo again. I don't think I would do a portrait style just because I'm not really interested in any other portrait style tattoos. So I think that I would probably get a tattoo of her again. I just don't know that I would do it in a portrait, and I don't know that I would do it in the placement that it's at on my leg, because it's kind of a weird placement, which I chose, like that's all on me, but I just don't love the placement and whatever about that tattoo. I already talked about that. But also I have my back tattoo, which is pretty small. It's like at the top center of my back and it's not very big, but it's basically now kind of in the way of me ever doing a full back piece. And that's not something I know that I want to do for sure. I'm kind of playing with the idea of maybe continuing to do like the patchwork style of tattoo that I have on my arm onto my back, just on like a bigger scale. So I would still have like space between different pieces, but they would be a bigger scale than what's on my arm, just not as big a scale of like a whole back piece. But if I wanted to do a back piece, I can't, because that tattoo is just kind of in the way. So I have a couple tattoos with things like that where it's like there's nothing wrong with them, and like I have them and I live with them and I love them in some cases. But if I was doing it over again, would I do things differently? Yes. Placement and execution. Next question. This is a fun one. They asked, what do you think about UV ink that glows under black light? So this is like a cool concept. I don't know how long this has been around, but I have heard of this before. It's a cool idea. It's not really my thing. Like I'm not super particularly interested in like these, I don't know the right word, like gimmicky or something, you know, like there's like a cool feature of the tattoo. Like I'm not really into that for myself. Like I think it's a cool idea and I think it's cool that that can be done. It's just not something I'm interested in really for myself. I think a similar thing that would fall into this category is like, I've heard of people getting tattooed with like cremation ashes and stuff like that, like so that their loved one can be part of their skin and like part of their tattoo ink. Again, cool idea, not really for me. Another one that I've seen is like people getting tattoos of like sound bites, you know, like audio waves, and then you can try to like put it through a filter or something and see if it'll play back. Again, cool idea, not really for me. Oh, and then the next question also plays into this very well, which is what do you think about QR code tattoos? That one, I guess, like, I think the other ones are like cool ideas, just not for me. This one I just think is kind of like weird in general. Like a QR code tattoo. I guess maybe if the QR code linked to like your own website or something, like maybe that would be cool, depending on what your website is or like what your business is, I guess. But I can't really think of any website that I would need a QR code to link to on my body. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that people have cool uses for this. I just personally can't think of a really good reason to get this tattoo, but yeah, I'm sure somebody has a cool reason. The next question is, what piercings or dermals do you plan to get? So not a tattoo question, but definitely tattoo adjacent, body modification type of question. Dermals, I'm not interested in at all. I remember when I first learned, and I to be honest, I don't know if all dermals are done this way, but I know that whenever I first learned about dermals, like when I was in high school or middle school, and I found out that it was like a corkscrew that screws into your skin, I was just like, no, like the visual of that, the idea of that is not for me. Again, one of those things, I think it's a cool idea. I think it looks great on other people. I think people are really into that, like people that are into more, I guess, extreme type of body modifications. I think it's cool, cool for them. Not something I'm interested in. I think the physical idea of like a piece of metal being corkscrewed into me is not something that I'm interested in. And maybe there are other methods where you can have that done, but the idea of having jewelry like implanted into me in some way, I'm just not interested in that. But regular piercings, I am interested in. There's a lot of piercings that I want. And I am such a big baby about piercings, which is funny. And people always make fun of me because I'm so tattooed, but like I can't handle a piercing. I also hate getting injections or like vaccines because I just hate needles, like medical needles. So as far as piercings go, there are definitely piercings I want, but I don't know if I'll actually get them because I'm a big baby about getting pierced. I did have my nose pierced for a while, like a couple years ago. I just had like my nostril pierced on one side and I wore a stud in it, and it fell out one night in my sleep, and then when I went to put it back in, I like couldn't get it back through. I also sometimes, maybe this is like gross TMI, but like sometimes I have this sensation, even with my regular like earlobe piercings, where if it's like starting to close up and I'm trying to push an earring through it, I'll start to feel like physically sick. Like I'll have to, like I feel like dizzy and like I'm gonna throw up, and so I have to like take a break sometimes. So that's why I try to not let my earrings get to the point of like trying to close up or like almost closing up, because I really hate that feeling of like forcing an earring through your skin when it doesn't want to be there. So that's kind of what happened to my nose piercing, and I just like couldn't get it back through. So I gave up on that. But I would like to get my nose re-pierced maybe. I definitely want to get some more ear piercings. Like I want to get, I don't know what they're all called. I know they all have cool names and like, you know, the technically correct like part of your ear, but I would like to get some like upper piercings up here. This little like nub that's on the inside of your ear, I can never remember what this is called. My sister has this piercing, it looks really cute. But other than my ears, the only other piercing that I'm really interested in having done is maybe a philtrum piercing, which is like right here on your face. I think it looks really pretty, to be honest. This is another thing that I saw on Girl New York originally for the first time. She was the first person I met in real life that had that piercing, and I thought it looked so beautiful on her. So that was where I kind of got the idea in my head. But she was describing it to me and like how many layers of skin it has to go through, and I was just like, oh, I don't know. I can't handle a lot of stuff like that. So we'll see. We'll see if I get any other piercings. And then our very last question is, do you regret any? And the person said, that's my biggest holdup. I totally feel that. I think that's fair enough. Like if you feel like you might regret a tattoo, or you're not 100% sure that you want a tattoo, don't get it. Absolutely don't get it. You know, take your time, think about it. For me, I think that regret is a feeling that I have a certain amount of control over. And I think that to an extent, I can choose to love my tattoos. I already talked about the fact that I have a couple tattoos that aren't my favorite. I don't love them. They're not perfect. I probably wouldn't redo them again, but I don't want to be sitting here consumed with the fact of like, I hate this tattoo, I don't like this tattoo, I never should have gotten this tattoo, I wish I did this differently, I wish I didn't do this at all. Like, you know, you can let yourself get consumed with those feelings. And I think for some people, like depending what their tattoo is or how it was done, or like the reasoning behind that feeling, I think that sometimes that is like very legit feelings. But for me, like none of my tattoos that I don't like are so severe that it really impacts my life. And like, even though I could dedicate my time to thinking about the fact that I don't like them, I just choose to accept them and choose to like them anyway, because they're on my skin and they're not going anywhere. I could have them lasered, or I could have them covered up, and you know, I have various different thoughts about doing some of those procedures for different tattoos, but like it doesn't consume me and make me anxious. So that's why I wouldn't call it regret. Like I think regret is a much stronger feeling than what I have towards the tattoos that I have that I don't love. And I think that the idea of being able to choose to love your body and to love yourself, which is something that has been very difficult, if not impossible for me my entire life, being able to have access to starting to do that through my tattoos is very special and very important to me. And I think that because I've been able to like use that skill towards my tattoos, I'm hoping that I can start to transfer that to other things about my body that I feel insecure about or that I don't like. Not that I have to love them, just that I have to accept that they're there and that I exist and that I look how I look or whatever. So that's kind of my way of thinking about tattoo regret, is that I can choose to like my tattoos, and I just do. That doesn't work for everyone, but that is my take on it. So there you have it. Those are all the questions I got for this video. If you guys have any other questions about my tattoos, you can definitely leave them down below, and if I do a part 2, I will answer your questions, or if I don't do another video, I might just answer them in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss my next upload, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.